Welcome back, listeners. We have been on a mini hiatus. Summer is over, autumn is here. Can't quite believe it's Christmas in just a few short weeks. So today on our 12th episode in Paws, Rewind and Play, we talk to Ellie Cavale. She's the co-founder and owner of Vets on the Common, which is a startup practice based in London. She is an advanced practitioner in small animal surgery, and she talks about the challenges of being a business owner and a vet at the same time, and of course, the real struggles of setting up and operating through one of the most volatile times that we've ever witnessed. From the economic viewpoint, it is just quite chaotic. So to hear from someone who is riding the ride and somehow balancing and juggling all of these different balls at the same time while trying to be a commercially astute business person as well as a vet, Ellie's insights proved to be very useful. There's a bunch of things that we have been able to unearth and unpack a little bit. Things like personal space and safety, overall work-life balance, what to do with financial constraints, how to compartmentalize and isolate, and what to do when you're feeling more like a life coach as opposed to getting down to business and sort of being a vet. I think Ellie's direct personal experience can certainly add a lot of value to how you may potentially navigate a very similar situation. And then we also go into her vision for 2023 and what she is focused on. So let's dive in and have this chat with her. Hi, Ellie. How are you doing?
Hello. Hi, Kim.
Yes, welcome to Paws, Rewind and Play. It's so fantastic to have you on our podcast. Just a little bit before this episode, we were having a chat about how you are the co-founder of Vets on the Common, and it's really great to have you on board because you've got your own unique set of challenges around being sort of somewhat of a startup practice and a new practice in the market. So I'd love to hear more about you, how you got into the veterinary industry in the first place, and how where you have come to be at this point in time.
Sure. Yes. So myself and my colleague Michael Lazaris set up Vets on the Common almost a year ago now. We started trading on the 1st of November. And yes, been really interesting, and we've made some good decisions, some bad decisions, mostly good, I have to say. More than happy to share our experience. And should I start at the beginning, like what made me become a vet and that sort of thing?
Yeah, just a brief background on the passion and the motivation, why you became a vet, and then what your practice motivations are, what it looks like, and what your key values are for customers.
Sure. So on a personal level, I mean, being a vet was one of my childhood dreams, really the most powerful childhood dream. I've always wanted to be a vet. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. That's not to say I haven't been disillusioned at stages in my life, mostly to do with, as you say, challenges with, looking after the patients, but also looking after the owners, also fulfilling expectations of your employers. It's all, I'm sure very complex. But for the last year, we have been lucky enough to find a place to call our own clinic and set up our own um, principles and values. And obviously the patients are always in the heart of our profession, but we are lucky, I think, to have amazing owners, amazing clients that really care about their pets' well-being. Mm. And I guess that's one of the most important challenges. If you don't get that, if you don't get caring owners, for me, that's most tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of, even ourselves as a provider of technology to veterinary practices, we know that one of the key things is better outcomes for the pet parents and the pets themselves. So facilitating veterinarians to have more benefit from using systems and technology that can enable that kind of thing. So your practice today, Vets on the Common, as a startup, what kind of challenges do you feel like have had the most impact? Because I know certainly in the UK, there's been the perfect storm. Well, I don't like to say perfect anymore because actually it's a really ugly storm. But, we've had Brexit, we've had COVID, we've had, the puppy boom, mental health crisis in the industry, and now we have the cost of living crisis. So how are you guys catering to, there's your furry friend. What's her name?
That's Mouse, my cat. My friend.
Oh, you lovely cat. Well, this is so perfect for a podcast about animals in the veterinary industry. So that's conversation before we got distracted by your very needy cat.
She's happy. She wants her second breakfast.
Yes, after breakfast. Yeah, so the challenges, like out of all of those crazy big things that could potentially be quite paralyzing for the industry, what do you feel like has been the most challenging challenge, if that makes sense?
I guess as a startup, we were quite worried early on whether, with all the, as you said, the increased cost of everything, rent or electricity, gas bills, salaries, all of that was a bit overwhelming to us, not knowing whether we manage to afford the investment we made and, pay the salaries of our staff, which weren't that many to begin with. We only started with 2 nurses, but it was a stressful, say, first 6 months, the bill didn't work because it's one thing to worry about, as you said, equipment and practice management systems and all of that, but you don't realize how much you need to spend on, say, setting out the X-ray room and the radiation protection, or even little things like, flooring and decorating. All of that was completely new to us and a big challenge to kind of project manage everything. But, going forwards and after, it was very funny. So at the beginning, we were so much into the building project of setting all the equipment out and the way the different rooms of the practice were supposed to work. And we were so used to seeing builders in the house, in the building, that we didn't really feel like vets at all. And it was very weird when the builders stopped coming in and then the patients started.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get, because you have all the infrastructure, the technology, just operational type stuff that you need to get into a commercial mindset, and you're not even thinking about being a vet at that point.
Exactly.
So a room.
Exactly. So we were in the midst of that, really, as you say, equipment and practice management systems and the telephone, setting up the telephone line, and the internet, but that was really challenging. Not sure whether we had all the necessary drugs, for example. If we had an emergency, would we have some, the vitamin K antidote ready, for example, or the to induce a messes or anything really. It was very worrying at the beginning, having to transition between being a practice owner and project manager to being a vet at the same time. So I think we've got that sorted now. So from our point of view, it was a very steep learning curve, I think, to be able to balance the two. But from the owner's point of view, that I suppose most of them coming to us were already patients of a different practice, and we would have to deal with ongoing cases that have been managed through the lockdown period. And the main thing that was clear, I think, and the most challenging thing for owners was the lack of communication between their existing vets and themselves, which was in a way unavoidable due to COVID.
Yeah.
But I guess, the balance between having the owners in the building and communicating with them at the same time, protecting ourselves, because we were still at the tail end of the pandemic at that point last year. And in fact, a lot of practices were shut down for a few days completely because all their staff went down with COVID. And we had a spell just before Christmas, 4 days, where all of us were off sick. But luckily, just before Christmas, so we were lucky with that too. The timing worked. But it was a combination of trying to maintain communication with the owners, trying to maintain, our personal space and safety, and also the financial constraints that the owners were facing, most of them, through either, having been made redundant or furloughed, or, the cost of living having gone out, or the other very common problem, which I think is still ongoing, a lot of owners that were new to owning a pet and had no idea about how to bring up a puppy or a kitten, or, how to deal with everyday stuff that you regard as given. So we were a little bit life coaches as well as vets, trying to work out how best they can interact with their puppy, or going through really obvious issues. Like an example that I still can't quite get my head around is having a very thin pet in the consult, where the owner is really concerned that their pet is not putting on weight, and then you ask the question, so does he or she have an appetite? And they say, yeah, she's starving all the time. And I'm going, okay, so how many meals a day does she have? Oh, I'm only feeding her twice a day, 60 grams, twice a day. And you think, okay, would she eat more if you were to give her some? Oh, yes, of course she would. She would eat 4 times a day. Okay, well, if your puppy's thin and has a good appetite, obviously it's hungry and it needs to eat more. They were so used to, as in they were so worried about following instruction that they were just looking at the guidelines on the packet of the certain make of food, or, with all these trendy companies that food is made to order and it's based on the size and the weight of the puppy, that they couldn't sort of work out a simple problem. I have a thin puppy, it is run around all day, is very hungry all the time. He would eat as much as I give it. Why do I give it more before I take it to bed?
It just highlights how much I feel like consumers or customers are overwhelmed with information, and they don't quite know how to, like, there's no rule book, or if there is, they seem to think that there's a global standard that applies to their pet, where in reality it's just like human beings, we all have very different bodies and systems, but for the animal and pet itself kind of needs to be personalized, doesn't it?
Yes.
It's how you balance all these balls that you have to juggle, basically. So you have a business to run, but you're also a vet. And what I'm saying is everything that you just told me has been highly stressful. And I imagine that's the case for most vets. So how do you deal with those challenges? Like, what are the best solutions that you have in mind? And what are the lessons learned?
I guess I'm lucky that when I am in the consult room or prep or theater with a pet, I can concentrate on the pet in front of me and try and do what's best in this particular moment for this particular animal. And it almost feels like nothing else is important at the time. And I can maybe isolate each action. And then if I leave the pet and it's, had an operation or it's in recovery, or I've come up with a diagnosis or steps for the owners to follow so we can get to a diagnosis or a solution. And then I, go and open our balance books and look at our invoices. And then I kind of concentrate on the invoices and try and sort those out without worrying about how, Rocky is doing, and focus again on the problem in front of me at that particular moment, so I can put things in boxes and just look at one box at each time. And there was a time in my life, I remember, that I felt like if I opened one box, I found 15 more little boxes inside, and then one of those 15 boxes would have another 10 boxes. And that would create a lot of stress in my life. But I am more one box at a time kind of person at the moment.
I think that's a great strategy, though, because I remember speaking with Danny the vet. He's a trustee on Vet Life, so he knows all about like mental health as well. But he was saying one of the best approaches is to compartmentalize.
Yes.
And as you said, isolate things so it doesn't feel like everything is crushing you all at once, everything at once.
Yeah. I think that's a great asset, to be able to switch off of everything else and just deal with what needs to be dealt, a bit like triaging, I guess, deal with the problem of today, and then tomorrow we'll worry about the problem of tomorrow and not what's going to happen 2-3 months down the line, because no one knows really. Even if you make a plan about 3 months forward, how do you know that everything is going to follow the plan to get to that stage? And that has happened a few times, in the practice, where we thought, okay, maybe, in 3 months we're going to buy this equipment or hire this extra member of staff. And then things happen and you realize, oh, maybe we don't need this equipment as much as we need, the other, and a different piece of kit. Or, we were toying with the idea of getting a receptionist or not, and we still haven't completely decided because we've only got nurses at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult to try and plan that far ahead. Having said that, when you're looking at your monthly income and expenditure, you do have to be sure that, like I said, at least you can cover the costs of your staff. And as co-founders and directors, again, if it's a startup practice, you have to be prepared that your personal income is going to be non-existent for at least a year before you can recover your investment, really.
Yeah. So let's dive into that point a little bit, because you're talking about potentially contingency plans, even though you want to stay anchored to sort of present day matters in order to manage the stress. As a business owner, you almost have to strategize, look at your budgets, look at your future plans and things like that. Putting your crystal ball in front of you, what do you feel like 2023 will bring? What will that look like for your practice? What areas are you investing in? Is it training? Is it technology? Anything otherwise?
Yeah, I think we are at a very sort of early stage, so we're still investing in all three. We certainly need more technology. We need more staff. We need more training for sure for all of us, really. That's the other thing that happens when you stop being just a vet and you become a practice manager or a financial advisor, for your own self.
Or life coach, as you say.
Yes, or a life coach. You kind of forget about the excitement of learning new techniques or having CPD about a new medication, or all these exciting things that only vets can get excited about. And there is a danger of getting stuck to a routine where you can't grow as professionally. So we do hope that in 2023 we'll have enough headspace to look at our personal career goals, apart from being practice owners. What do we want for ourselves as vets again? And also help our nurses achieve their CPT goals or career progression. And from the financial point of view, we're very lucky to have very good accountants. So we do have some guidance, about where we are, because I wouldn't really know where to start with payroll and, VAT returns and all that. Yeah. That was completely new to us. And so we think we can invest in all three, career progression, new bits of equipment, and sort of expanding the clients of our practice. Mm-hmm. But at the heart of all of this, for me, is not so much planning, more good communication with your team members, with your clients, your owners, your pet owners, and with professionals like your accountants that can help you achieve what you set out to. And even with, wholesalers and, all the companies that sell all the veterinary equipment, you need to communicate your needs really well to them, and vice versa. They need to communicate all the possible pitfalls of, what you're planning on doing, so you can get to a satisfactory outcome. When you invest in something really expensive, you need to have sorted out things like, service with them, and, how long you expect the equipment to be current for, how technology updates almost every other month. So there is definitely a lot to plan, but at the heart of planning for me is communication.
Yeah, and I think that's for both sides, for your staff and your clients. Just on the client side, a lot of feedback we're getting is how much practices want to prioritize wellness and pet healthcare plans, just because of the cost of living crisis. That type of thing is becoming more common, and just somewhat easier with technology to integrate and to offer to customers. So things like, it's not quite insurance, but like bundles and packages where clients get the reassurance and affordability factor, where they're like a subscription or membership, they're paying a monthly fee to get all the necessary health checks, vaccinations, boosters, and whatnot for their pet. What is your view on pet healthcare plans or wellness plans for your customers? Is that something you do? Is it something that you're thinking about?
We do offer them. We didn't have a very strong personal opinion, my partner and myself, on this subject, but we got quite a few phone calls from clients, as you say.
Okay.
Requesting them or saying that they're already on a plan with their current practice. Do we offer a plan as well? Otherwise, they may not be able to swap over. So we did sign up with a pet plan, and it is fairly popular. It does have its own challenges because not all people realize that the way they work is through monthly payments that are meant to carry on past the services that they receive. So we've had a few people cancelling their membership after they've had a whole lot of vaccinations and flea control and all the rest of it, and not understanding why they owe us the money that they do. So it is it is slightly more complicating than you think, but for sure there are savings to be made from the client's point of view. From the vet point of view, you retain the continuity, and you know that this pet is going to have their lungworm protection all through the year, for example, and because the client has already paid for it, so they're more likely to actually request it, receive it. So they work. I'm not against them, but it is still, I think we're still at the stage with clients where they haven't completely grasped how they work, and a lot of people confuse them with pet insurance as well, which is another another pitfall, and they think that any consultation, any medication will be covered on their monthly subscription. Also because some practices, I'm sure you're aware, offer a monthly subscription that would also cover all consultations, which I find very strange, but it's a different model. So there is a lot of groundwork involved in setting up a pet plan and educating your clients as to what that means. But sure, it does help the clients save some money for sure. and the vets be a bit more on top of, like I said, preventative care rather than treating the. Yeah.
Well, thank you for the insight. I really just wanted to dive into that one because it's like a recurring theme that keeps coming up in conversations across the industry. So it's like, as you mentioned, it's the continuity of care for the pets and pet parents, and then a consistent revenue stream potentially for the practice. So it was really nice to get your opinion on that. And like you say, it seems like there's a lot of groundwork, and it's not just as simple as let's offer a membership or subscription, because you have to think about all the dynamics and understanding that the pet parent has in the first place and being able to educate them as well. But this has sort of been a really fascinating conversation. And before I let you go, I have one last question, which is around I know we spoke about trends next year, what areas you're investing in, but what's like your biggest what are your next steps? What's your aspiration as a clinician and as a practice owner? What are you looking to achieve?
I guess the most difficult challenge is balancing work and personal life at the moment, because you put so much more of your time into your work as a practice owner. If someone is off sick, you need to cover for them. There's no kind of getting out of overtime or, working through Christmas, Easter. You can try not to, but at the end of the day, you feel the responsibility, stops with you. You can't call the manager or the boss and say sorry. So that for me would be the biggest challenge. And I think, being a practice owner or, a employed vet, it is the challenge for most vets, how to balance their working life and also have good quality personal time where you can switch off and just be a person rather than a vet. That's very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like amongst all of the challenges that you guys have had, I mean, we're office workers, for example, we got a break or we were furloughed, but for veterinary practices, you never really got a break. There was the puppy boom, and then still a massive surge in demand, overwhelming demand for pet care and veterinary services. And I'm really not surprised, but also saddened by the mental health state of the industry, because it was very sobering and horrible to hear about the suicide rate. So that will continue to be a prevailing theme, just work-life balance.
Yeah, no, definitely. And actually, I think the lockdown has been, as you said, much more challenging than less challenging to vets.
Yeah.
Also because even during your working hours, the pressure was much higher. It is much more difficult to deal with a pet when the owner is not with you, in my opinion, because there's only so much information you can get from 5 minutes talking to them outside the practice or on the phone, as opposed to having them in the consult with you and asking questions one after the other as you're doing your examination. There are, you need to be able to ask the right questions to get the right answers. And you can't ask the right questions in advance or after the clinical examination. So the whole having to deal with pets without the owners, even though it was quite a novelty and some people thought, great, amazing, we won't have to deal with any angry clients. We just have to, have the fluffy pets and that's it.
Yeah.
But I think it makes the job much more tricky. And again, it comes down to communication. If you don't have the communication with the owners, you can't feel that you have achieved the solution. This comes back to having the box, the problem, and getting to a solution of this issue in front of you. And then, as you said, going home and switching off and enjoying your personal life and having personal life, as in having the time off rather than feel overworked, for the whole time.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I actually didn't even think about that. And so it's interesting to hear from you directly, like that specific challenge of not having the owner there to answer questions about their pet. I just didn't think about that. So thanks for sharing. But, listen, here's to you finding a better work-life balance, hopefully sooner rather than later. We don't even need to wait until 2023. And I have to commend you for just being a veterinary practice business owner and starting up in such volatile times. So thank you, Ellie, for your insights. Our listeners will very much appreciate and value what you've been able to share with us today. So thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
So from Ellie, obviously it's not the first time we've heard about mental health techniques and some of the common challenges that are centered around work-life balance, mental health, how to juggle many balls. But I do think there's a consistent pattern around being able to compartmentalize and isolate different challenges, as Ellie mentioned. It was indeed very similar to the conversation that I had with Danny the vet, who is a trustee on VetLife. And these are obviously sort of proven and well-evidenced techniques or ways of coping that do indeed help people, otherwise they wouldn't be talking about it. But I think with Ellie being a business owner as well, this adds another layer of how practical it can be. What I love about Ellie's perspective as well is what the future holds for veterinary practices. She was quite clear on sort of the trio, the magic number, 3 different objectives where she wants to focus on career progression, equipment and technology, and expanding and acquiring new clients. So again, while that may be quite common, it's also very specific. So I do urge practices to think about specifically where they want to focus their efforts for 2023. And what's exciting is that we will indeed soon be sharing survey responses that we're putting out around the common challenges of 2023, what practices are doing as a solution, what the recommendations and advice are. So I hope that you've enjoyed this conversation with Ellie, and we'll see you soon with our next episode.